Hello and welcome. It's Matthew David, the Minister of Allowing. Just got done doing some hill, not necessarily the sprints part, but just the warm up. I run up 10 times for the warm up on these 4 slopes and then take a quick break, and then I come up for the sprints and start doing the sprints with the weight vest on. It's kind of cold out, 43 degrees, and off the lake here the wind blows, so got a little bit of that going on. And I guess in my heart of hearts I feel that the consciousness of the planet has risen above. I feel like we've succeeded. Everybody knows what's going on now. I mean, everybody knows who's behind all this. It's just now the tug of war where, like an animal trapped in the corner, it's got to fight its way out. That's what the forces of darkness are doing on their last ditch attempt to carry out their agenda. But you can't really carry it out when everybody knows, because there's too many. It's all consciousness. You see, it's like a teeter-totter. The scale is heavy on the side of truth now. So good job. I mean, I guess it makes me very grateful for my children growing up in this world, that they will have the future they deserve, because once we know, we can never unknow what they're doing. And that's the beauty of it. So today I'm going to do the second installment for the lesson I gave 5-6 days ago. And I haven't been as active in the public lately because a lot of healing's been going on. I've had a lot of stuff come up. Man, it's been intense. A lot of emotional trauma from my past. A lot of things that I had not dealt with that needed to be addressed. Sadness, there's a lot of cleansing going on. And so I want to take time so that I can be effective. Otherwise, there's no point. So I've been taking some time and really rekindling my relationship with Sabrina. I feel that she's the greatest woman I've ever met in my life. And, that's all I got to say about that. So, we've had a rocky stretch on and off throughout the years, but we've always, co-parented, done business together, and held ourselves to a standard. But that wasn't what God wanted. And so I needed to really look in my heart at some of the impurities that were within me, some of the hurt, the resentment, and the same with her. And we both have had a lot of time to reflect on this. And the new thing is, like the song says, if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. Well, you are with the one you love if you're with someone, because the deal is it's you, because you're always mirroring that relationship to yourself. So we turn within and we say, I am the perfect marriage with the perfect wife and the perfect life. Instead of pointing the finger and saying, we have too many issues, we can't get along, this and that. You gotta turn within. We can't look out there. So I've been doing a lot of that myself, and really turning within to some of the things that in my life needed to be addressed. And I had this really cool epiphany, and I had a song I put together for it. I just had the instrumentals professionally done and mastered, and now I've got the vocals that are going to get sent off and done and mastered. And I got a vocalist that's going to be able to pull off the kind of sound I want. It's going to be a hard rock type song, but the hook was so important to me. The hook was everything, because it was the lesson that I'm learning about this time in my life. It's like, get into your heart, get into your heart is what it's all about. We've deified science and logic and all this stuff. And what it's done is it's brought us into our heads. We're to the point where we look at somebody out there, like a Bill Gates. This is this like CIA archetype. You got this guy with, some dark glasses on, and he looks like an intellectual. And we look at him, and we say, oh, he's got his stuff together. Look at him. He's got the black glasses on, and he's got the, Anderson Cooper, Bill Gates. You got these. I don't even want to go into that because I'm not into conspiracy theories anymore. Everybody can find that stuff out. What I'm into is the, how the simulation, how the program, the matrix plays itself out, and ultimately what it means with what we're dealing with within. And so, the matrix wants you to look to your head and to go with your logic and to increase your logic and to build and build and build and build and build on that logic. But it's all human logic for the most part. And it's here today and gone tomorrow, so it has no root. Error has no root. And so, the whole part was, I think it goes, get into your heart, lay down your harm, and break the belief within. Okay, then and it goes, get into your heart. I'll have to remember it. I was writing it and I sent it off like 4 or 5 days ago, so I don't even really remember it anymore. But it came to me, like my favorite musician, Miles Kennedy. I posted it on the wall. If you're not in part of our group, getting our live streams and our prayer 3 times a day, you should join hurtado.io, HURTADO.io. And I'm happy to report that many people have been reaching out saying, that their tithe is prospering them, and it has for our family as well. That's our secret to, leaning on God and not our own understanding, in the 3-2-1 prosperity formula. So if you're new to this, just go to MatthewDavidHurtado.com, my name. Check out the 3-2-1 training. It's free, and the other one's iDisrupt.world. A lot of stuff on there. And this is really what it's all about. Get into your heart. Don't lean on your understanding at all. And turn your heart towards God, towards love. And keep yourself focused on that, because we are guaranteed things in life. We are guaranteed that we are going to go through times of trouble. And I'll tell you, I've been through so many times of trouble. Scary, scary, scary stuff. And, tribulations, bedridden for almost 2 years with Lyme disease. I'm pretty certain I've been through this whole, Corona thing. And I'm sure millions of people around the world have been through it too. And what do? Well, we have to know that God has hope and a plan for us, and we have to know the truth. But it's more about not logical understanding. It's about, do you love God? Do you really, really love God? Because if you do, then if you put yourself in that space, you're going to do so much better overall, because you can go through anything. I was watching this guy, and I was really inspired to go through his material. And his name is Michael Franzese. I think that's his name. He was a former mob boss. He was like the guy. But anyway, he talked about, how do you go from being a mob boss to a man of Christ? And you see, if God can forgive him, God can forgive me, God can forgive you. And forgiveness is, I think, the underpin. It's like the underboss lesson of this whole Corona season. I think it's all about forgiveness. It's all about forgiving ourselves. It's all about forgiving others who we think have done us wrong. Okay? It's all about just walking in a state of surrender to love. Because if we surrender to love, then our steps are ordered, because God is love. And if we hold our peace, then we have received the Christ, because Christ is the Prince of Peace. And these are simple things. I've taught about them in my last several videos. For the ministry, I told everybody I would walk, through this experience with the best of my ability to minister. And, the past, 5 videos or so, I've done my best to do that, because I'm in the experience too as a human reflection of mortal consciousness. You see, that reflection represents my 5 senses just like it does yours. But I know that I'm not that, because that's not eternal, that's temporal. And so we have to move above the temporal into the eternal. And the way to do that is that understanding of the eternal is actually divine love. What is God? God is love. God is spirit. Okay, so we know what God is. So then we have to turn to God. And we have to reflect God as the image and likeness of. And so we can't love if we point the blame and we want to, harm Bill Gates or harm people. And that was what the point of the song was. And I hope you guys enjoy it when it comes out. It's not for everybody. Some of these hard rock songs, people don't always like them. But I do, because I like all types of music and I make all types of music. But the message, I think, was the message for me is, get into your heart, lay down your harm, and break the belief within. You see, you don't have to take action in the outer world of form to solve any of these problems in your life. You have to turn within to the primary belief is a belief in two powers. See, that is the crux that holds the whole thing together, is that we believe in our mortal sense that there is good and evil. And it's the and evil part. But when God declared everything was his and everything was his good, he didn't put and evil is me too. God's not evil. Okay? And we can say, well, there is evil on this planet. I mean, people are dying all the time. There are murders, there are rapes, there are all this child stuff. It's horrible, horrific stuff, right? And it is in the world of the flesh. Okay, that's the law of sin and death. And I've been saying over and over and over that this is what the movie The Matrix was about. It's an AI simulation. Okay? But you see, God is here right now. God is ever present. God is all there is. God is love. And we can be in the presence of God in the midst of all of that stuff going on out there. And what would happen is we could walk through a gang fight with, people shooting at each other. And if we beheld the love of Christ, then everything would be brought to divine right order in that moment. Because when the truth comes, it destroys error. And it brings everything. It's like shining the light in the dark. If we open up our door in the cellar and it's dark, you see, that's what all of the suffering on the planet is. It's darkness. Ignorance of the Father. So when we show up with the light and we put the light on, well then, guess what happens? It all becomes light. Okay, so you might hear some children in the background. I'm in a separate room, but again, when everybody's locked down, we're all together. So just in case you'll hear that, here is the song lyrics that I wrote, and just kind of updating a couple things about it. But I just want to read them to you so you can see kind of what the message is, because this is what was on my heart the last week. Verse 1, a certain care, afraid I won't be all right. Mainstream told me no public gatherings for a while. Just when I started knowing everything's all right, yeah, world started closing, all these terrors in the nighttime. And then it gets into the chorus. Get into your heart, lay down your harm and break the belief within. Get into your heart, surrender fear, and let love be all that is. That was the main thing. That's the main see. We want to break the belief inside of us. We want to break the belief. So in this training, when I get to it, I'm going to talk about relationships, because relationships between, you and God, you and yourself, and then you and others are the most important, because that is what completes the 10 commandments. All right. And so this is really about getting into the alignment with the completion of that, so that you are in the flow of good. Verse 2, in the public eye, they're not even trying to hide. Arrested for the crime of going outside. Gates wants to vaccinate, and talking 5G is a crime. China's thought police are coming overseas to make sure you're in line. Have we gone mad? Have we lost our way? Then again, the chorus, get into your heart, lay down your harm, and break the belief within. Get into your heart, surrender fear, and let love be all that is. So verse 3, covered in his garment, already overcame. I am this perfect day, I cannot fail. Trust in my heart, I will turn inside. Trust in my heart, I will turn inside. One more time with the chorus. Get into your heart, lay down your harm, and break the belief within. Get into your heart, surrender fear, and let love be all that is. Then a nice little guitar solo, and then maybe some background, vocals. And then the bridge is when I look around, I know they're not there. I turn within, I cast my cares. I am the resurrection and the life. I am this perfect day that has no night. I am the resurrection and the life. I am this perfect day that has no night. One more chorus. Get into your heart, lay down your harm, and break the belief within. Get into your heart, surrender fear, and let love be all that is. Outro. He'll take care of me every day because I'll be living by the seed of faith. I'd sing that for you, but my voice is a little scratchy. I'd rather you just hear the professional version. But I loved the message. It was so powerful when I heard it, so I want to share it with you. So the training today, the I am is with God. That's why I put the colon there. I am is your God presence within. So step 1, again, if you want to, be well, you say, let the weak say I am strong, right? Well, say I am well and feeling good. See, you're the image and the likeness. The imagination is the Christ within. So step 2 is that you come into the day of rest, the Sabbath, the kingdom, okay? Kingdom living. Seek first the kingdom and all these things will be added unto you. So you fall where you rest in peace. And again, that means to just lay back into a place of rest. Surrender to love is what you could think. Surrender to love itself. And then clothe yourself in his imperishable garment. That is the imagination. See, the imperishable garment is the risen Christ, the human living imagination. It's a living being. It's Christ. The perishable rags are what the deity clothed himself in the man of Jesus. But he laid down those perishable rags for the eternal spiritual reflection of his Father. And then number 3 is you bring out there to completion, because whatever is beckoning you out there that's troubling you is incompleteness. That is, it's looking for completion. So you, as the risen Christ, are bringing that completion to the dark spots in consciousness where you are shining the light. And so what it is we're dissolving matter and destroying error. And that's also rebuking the devourer by the power of the I am and the Holy Spirit within. So this brings us to relationships, and this is the secret to all success in life. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Most importantly, knowing God and your relationship to God as a spiritual image and likeness reflection. But also conveying that forward into the world. And you see, relationships are the root of the standards that you set for yourself. Some people, they have higher standards than others. Well, why is that? Well, the reason why, it's called leveling up. You get to choose the level that you want to be at based on your perception of who you are and where you came from. Now, let's talk about when you feel an awkward feeling, again, like some sort of conflict, envy and strife. Wherever there is envy and strife, there is incompleteness. That means that you've made contract, you've made joinder with the world out there through a fear. So you're not seeing things properly in that position. And what happens is we run on these tracks. Okay, so we repeat cycles in life. Like, take your last incident in your life that was traumatic, cut your age in half, and you'll probably discover that this isn't the first time you've had a very similar emotional experience regarding some condition in life. Because what that is that's a relationship issue. And so we correct this by knowing that love is all. And underlying those issues are always judgments. So we can ask ourselves, what are we judging, if not our thoughts regarding them in a way that troubles us? So it's us that are entertaining thoughts, okay? And as we entertain these thoughts regarding allegedly them, remember the world isn't there, it troubles us. Those are judgments. We become what we judge. So like I said earlier that, I can't remember which part I put that piece on. It could be at the end of this video where I'll tell you that forgiveness is the lesson of lessons during this season. Anyway, forgiveness is what's due. Forgiveness is what you have to send. Forgiveness is your price to pay. So send the ones that trouble you love. Ask to be shown for the good, because therein lies the truth, because love is all, God is all, in all space, in all circumstances, throughout all of your life. God's presence is the only mind power, okay? The mind, power, and presence, that's it. So ask to be shown the good, because therein lies the truth. And then you let God pay those debts. So you can turn within and say, I am the divine harmony in His presence now. Regarding any situation where, you see, you began with a feeling inside of conflict, where there was envy and strife, there was incompleteness. So what we want to do is we want to dissolve matter. We want to destroy error. What destroys error? The Christ, okay? By what? By the power of the Father, the I am. So the imagination of Christ fills the need by the power of the I am, the spoken word and the human imagination clothing itself with the imperishable garment of completeness brings the condition to completion. And you see, all of this and the forgiveness, these are all contained in two techniques that I created. And one of them is the ABC break process, and the other one is the safe touch technique. So ABC break process is extraordinary for getting you into the place of rest, getting you into the place of allowing the Spirit to bring it to completion so that you can dissolve matter, destroy error, and even rebuke the devourer, because rebuking the devourer means to come back into contract, into covenant. And that's where forgiveness comes in. And every problem that you have in life is actually a relationship problem. It is. Whether it's between you and your Creator, you and yourself, or you and others, it's all one problem. It has to do with a relating problem to whatever thought triggered you, okay, at the onset of conflict within your heart. Now, let me repeat that. Whatever challenge you are experiencing in life, it has to do with a relationship. Now, that relationship is between you and God, you and you, or you and others, and we know there's only one relationship, you and God. At the moment when some thought, some erring human thought, some triggering incomplete idea, you see, that's why in the song, when I wrote right here, break the belief within. So what we want to do is we want to do this. We want to get into our heart first. That's the step. You get into your heart, because you must come from love to have any sort of authority, because the only authority in life is God, and God is love. And then we must identify ourselves as God's reflection, spiritual consciousness, so that we know that we are the imperishable garment, that's the imagination of spirit, that fills the void, the human need. And love is what fills that void. So laying down our harm is at the juncture where the thought triggers our mortal response to sin. In other words, to take a human action toward solving a conflict that we feel inside of ourselves. You see, the situation is neutral. It doesn't matter what's happening. It's the situation inside of your heart. The harm comes from within. So lay it down. Lay down your judgment. Come to a place of non-judgment through surrender to love. And then look at the belief that was the idea that is in the mind of the mortals that is circulating. You see, these ideas, like Phineas Parker's Quimby, he discovered these ideas, minds mingle on the earth. Okay, the mortal minds mingle in mesmerism through a state of deception, because they know not the Christ, and they know not that there is not an ounce of life in anything material. So we take the belief and we break it. How? Get into your heart. Step number 1 is surrender your fear. Surrender your fear. Well, you say, how do I do that? This is horrible. I can't surrender my fear. It's the worst thing that ever happened. Well, the way to do that, again, is to look at the word surrender. Okay? Surrender. So let's look at surrender as a verb, okay, and even a noun, because the word itself has to have a contextual meaning, or you don't truly exhibit what it is you're trying to do if you don't comprehend what it is that your idea is pointing at. So surrender in this context, give up, give back, to give oneself up. Well, the idea that I like the most is giving oneself up. In other words, this mortal sense of life that seems to come and go. In other words, when you look back to when you were about maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, something like that, right? You probably made a lot of mistakes. You probably made some mistakes around the house. You got yelled at. Maybe you even fell off your bike and hurt yourself, and you did some things that in the moment of the chastening from your parental authority, or in the moment of the harm. I remember one time, true story, I was swinging on the tire swings on the playground, standing on them, and this is back in the day when playgrounds were not the safest, and I flew off and landed on my head on the concrete. Okay. Now, I remember the play yard, what's his name? Vince, the guy, he was the teacher that watched us when we were out playing. And I remember they heard this big smack on the concrete. And he looked straight down to see who it was. And I got back up, and I remember, running over to him in shock because I didn't know what happened, And that was it. Boom, gone. And then I guess I woke up several hours later after being unconscious and vomiting, and I had a major concussion at a young age, and I had a lot of concussions actually, but that, okay, was one of those experiences that in that moment, in that fright, I remember feeling the sense of fright, because when I felt my head crack on the cement and I got up and I ran, I knew I was in deep trouble. I knew that I was in a lot of fear, because this could not be good. I mean, I smacked my head. It's probably busted wide open. I remember just bits and pieces of it, to be honest with you. But I remember that moment, that triggering fear, okay? And I ran towards Vince is his name, and I didn't make it all the way. I remember that. I remember that's where the lights went out. I don't remember much after waking up. I just remember the stories they told me. But we can look at the word surrender. You see, when I essentially identified outside of physical consciousness, you could say I was unconscious at that time. Well, then I came back, and all of a sudden, that event was over, and that whole trauma had passed, and the continuity of harmony was brought back into my life again. Another time was when, this is a really, really, really interesting experience that I have no mental comprehension other than what I remember, is I walked out on the ice. I don't know how old I was, maybe 9 years old. And it was Lake Yahara. I grew up in that area over on Rutledge Street, Madison, Wisconsin, on the mouth of the lake. And I walked home from school like I normally did. I went out on the ice and I walked out and I walked out and crack. And I remember going under the ice and under the water and having the ice right on top of me as I was holding on and looking. And the next thing I know, again, everything went blank. The next thing I know, my recollection in my mental perception was that some man came running with his son and threw a rope, and I grabbed it and I got out and I ran like there was no tomorrow, shaking, panicking. I ran all the way home to where I lived at my grandma's house, got inside, called her crying. She said, "Go take a hot shower." And I did, and nothing was ever spoken of it again. Okay? Now, let's look at that, because sometimes they say you can have a death experience and you can continue right back along the trajectory of what you call your human life, like a video game, because we talk about AI, the simulation of the Matrix. And there's a lot of people that speculate that we're inside a video game in our sleeping state of awareness that we call being awake. We're at awake. We're surrounded by dead, empty carcasses in the world out there. They put it in plain sight, right? So then there's this other part that is actually life itself, the harmonious flow of eternal existence. Well, whatever happened in the mind, I have my version of the story. But when you look at it for what it is, what are the odds that there was a guy in the middle of winter walking with a rope and his son? Where did he get the rope from? And how did he do it so fast to catch me when I was under the ice? You see, that's the whole point, is that he would have had to come about 100 some yards from over on the block, where the block can he has to run from the block all the way over to the lake and then come out on the mouth where I was and then get me the rope under the water. You see, it doesn't make any sense, but that's how I remember it. To be frank with you, I don't know what happened, because it was a traumatic experience where it's kind of gone. Okay, but another experience, okay? I was 2 years old. At the time, my father was still in my life. I don't know much about that time. But he was driving down the highway, and my mom was in the car, and my mom was holding me in the front seat. Maybe she had been, I don't know if I was being nursed or whatever. But what happened was a drunk driver hit the car head on. And to make a long story short, my dad had to have a steel bar put in his leg. My mom held on to me. We went through the windshield of the car. Car got hit with another car at 55 miles an hour. Apparently, I broke about every bone in my body as a 2-year-old. Going through the windshield, my mom held on to me the whole time, saved my life. Forever grateful for her for that. And my mom had to have complete reconstructive surgery on her face because she went head first through the windshield. Now, do I remember any of that? No. I don't remember a lick of that. But I'm still here. And that's just 3 experiences of... There's probably at least 2 more. Yeah, there was at least 1 more. I'll tell you 1 more, okay? There was another time I came home and there was laundry detergent and it was sitting in a cup. And the laundry detergent was sitting in a cup and it looked blue. And I thought, you laugh at these people, but it's not funny. But when they have the Tide Pods and they die because they look like candies, right? Well, I did the same thing, but in a cup. And I chugged it. And when my mom came into the room, she realized what I'd done. She said, freaked out, like, "What have you done?" And she knew what I did, but she didn't know why I did it, because it was on the laundry and it was a blue cup, and she was going to use it for the laundry. Well, what do you think happened? Again, I don't remember blacking out, but I was gone. And I was told that, I woke up in the hospital later. And when I woke up, they said no symptoms, no trace, nothing. It just was like completely over. Pretty kind of weird, isn't it? So, this is what I know to be true from my experience of life. And that's why I'm telling you these weird stories that have happened to me. Is that there's going to be a time, essentially saying, is that there's going to be experiences when the mind fails you. The human mind is going to fail you because the human mind is temporal. It's not eternal, and the experiences that it perceives are only one side of a multifaceted story. So we essentially can say that those are all opinions and judgments. And these judgments, they're going to bind you to your idea. And you see, if you bind yourself to a human idea, it's going to trouble you. And so what we want to do is we want to lay down those human ideas. And so we want to forgive. And forgive doesn't mean, it means to give it up. It means to give it up completely. Okay? I don't know what happened. I don't know how God, the good in my life, maintained the continuity of my existence through all of those experiences and more. And I don't know how the good in my life keeps my heart beating at night while I sleep, my circulation going, my metabolism functioning when I digest food. And I don't need to know. And that's the beauty. Because my purpose in life is to express the qualities of God back to God, and to let the infinite, unfailing wisdom of God be the power in my life, and to rejoice and to praise God. And isn't that amazing that we have the ability to do that? So if you want to learn the techniques that can really put this into perspective, into a daily ritual that can help you, and it's a good refresher, just learn the ABC break process. It's on my channel here. You can look it up. Safe Touch is also on my channel. Or you go to my website, MatthewDavidHurtado.com, scroll to the bottom, and you'll see that I have the techniques right there for you to learn. And they help you understand the mechanics of how to put yourself into this place where you can forgive, you can surrender, and you can come from the solution. And it'll work for you because these are principles that put you into alignment again. I hope you appreciate this teaching and use it. It'll bless you. And we'll see you soon. And so, this is the journey. Every one of us is on a journey to ascend back to the Father. It's like we're all living out this seemingly individual life with all of its circumstances and all of its shortcomings and all of its blessings that we think are there. But in reality, the only thing that ever touches us is the love of God. So I'm going to turn it over to today's lesson. I hope you enjoy the second part of this continuation. And stay tuned. Stay committed to God, because I do promise you God loves you. And nothing will ever harm you, like it says in the Bible, if you turn to God and you love God wholeheartedly. And like the message says, just get into your heart. Not your head, your heart. Okay, so I'm a little winded. Just got done doing some sprints. And you know, I did the unthinkable. I didn't work out for like 5 or 6 days at all. I just sat around. It's just totally unlike me, but I was just going with the moment. I had a lot of healing that was coming up, and I figured, let's just go with this. And I just wanted to not continue to literally run away. I didn't want to run away from the pain. And so I said, you know what? Let's just deal with this pain. Let's just look deep. Let's just go into it. Loved the pain. And yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience that allowed me to truly see what was before my lying eyes. That, God has blessed me beyond. And sometimes we have critics out there, and I heard one person out there says, "Oh, I don't want to tie his ministry because he's living rich and living off the hog." Well, I am living rich and living really well because I live in this country where I have a roof over my head and I have food and my kids are clothed, and that to me is rich. Yeah, I am rich in all areas because I have the Christ. Now, in terms of material things, well, this is I guess you could say, the most modest I've ever lived since I was in my 20s. So, everybody has their judgments and they talk about things that they don't even know anything about. And, for that person, I guess I'd challenge them and say, let's take a look at our giving for the past year and let's see who's been throwing around the accusations, and let's just take a look at the books. I guess that's what I'd say. Because in my mind, no regrets. I love to give, I love to love, and I have learned, from 2013 when I was leaving that, 8,500, almost 9,000 square foot mansion, I found myself empty. I had all the cars I wanted. I had all this stuff. Sabrina and I were separated, and I had my share of people that were interested in my money, from friends to potential female relationship partners. And I'll tell you what, that is not the way to live. That was awful. It was awful, and it was empty. So all this stuff you see on TV, maybe the Dan Bilzerian lifestyle, well, more power to him if he likes that. More power to him. Because I tried to emulate that lifestyle because I thought that was the epitome of where I should put my focus and attention. And it was the most empty feeling. Well, aside from losing someone that you loved, I'd imagine it was probably the second most empty feeling, because whenever we chase our desires, whenever we chase our own selfish needs, what happens is, it becomes never enough, because that's why we're doing it, because we have a belief that I'm not enough underlying it, so we chase it. And second, it's indicative of what God is. God is the giver. God is love. God is the expression of the sufficiency for those in need in his world. Okay? And so it doesn't take too long. Like one of the worst things that you could ever have happen is to get what you ask for sometimes. You get it and you realize, okay, this is great. But, as I was sitting there and, surrounded by all this luxury and all this lavishness, and I don't mind it, it's fine. I like high-end stuff. I do. I don't have much of it around at this time, because what I found is that when I need to be effective, it's almost like the difference between the two gyms that I found when I was growing up. One gym was old and it was like a relic with rusty plates and people grunting and chains. And then there was another one that was all, clean and pristine, and you could almost smell the chemicals every day, and the cologne people wearing. And every time I'd go to those gyms, I'd notice that my workouts just were not as effective, as opposed to when I go to the old school dungeon. It's like a dungeon. And then I would work out like, crazy. And my results would be just through the roof. And that's the difference. That's what I found. So, back in 2013 when I downsized from the mansion to, I had a nice farmhouse. It was 2,000 some square feet on 17 acres. Gorgeous. I mean, what I did is I traded in the indoors for the outdoors. That's what happened, is that we had already acquired that property beforehand, and I decided, let's just go back to that one and get rid of all this money pit, all this, lock ourselves in a big fortress and shut the world out. Because that's kind of what it is. It's kind of like you're locking yourself in a fortress and shutting the world out. It's the feeling of like, look, I've made it. But then when you get there, you realize that what really brings our sense of I've made it is the feeling of completion, where we are in the expression of God's will for our lives. And that will is always to serve other people to the highest capacity that we were created to do. And so you can be happier. I can literally be happier in 1,200 square feet, 2,500 square feet. It doesn't matter. As long as I'm doing what God has intended for me to do, then I have all. And I can manifest all. It's not about lack. If I want a Lamborghini, I can have a Lamborghini. There's no problem. If I want to live in a mansion, I can have a mansion. There's no problem. And maybe one day I will again. And I'll do it under the circumstances where we have people that come and stay with us as part of the ministry. I've contemplated that idea. I've looked at properties for that purpose, but the season wasn't right. The season just wasn't right. I didn't feel in my heart that it was the right season. But what I'm trying to say is that with everything happening in the world, the economy collapsing and all this stuff, what's going to happen is now people are awake, and they're going to realize, because they're being stuck with people that they've been probably running away from, kind of like I have, running away, like literally. And they're going to have to say, I'm going to have to look within myself, and I'm going to have to look at myself in the mirror of my own consciousness and find out where my harmony is. And so that brings it around to the story of Michael Franzese. And the most intriguing part of his story I found, he's this ex-mob boss guy, is that when he was put into, prison for the second or third or fourth, I don't know what time it was, but they couldn't put him in the regular, cell unit because of the people that wanted to kill him. Basically, everybody wanted him dead because you never walk away from the mob. So they put him in isolation for 2 years and some time, by himself in isolation. And that's when he found Christ. And you can tell when you listen to him talk, the man has found Christ. He walked the walk. He knows what he's talking about. And in the scripture, he says that he always signs his name on all the books is to, lean not on your own understanding. That's what I'm saying, is that he found all that is in the midst of the most depraved circumstance, that you could probably be in. And he found all that is in the middle of that barren place. And so what we're looking at right now is what barren place in your life exists where you need to draw forth, the fruit of the Spirit, and to bring forth God's qualities in the midst of that appearance, to prove that God is not blocked by any human condition. God is not blocked or obstructed by any human condition. And that is the most magnificent discovery that I have ever witnessed in my life, whether it's healing or it's finances, you name it. And once you realize that God is the source of all, and that you are clothed in righteousness, when you know that the Holy Spirit, the I am, is God within, and the Christ is that human imagination, when it's in alignment with the will of God, when it is in conjunction with the Word of God, see, then that clothing, that garment in the realm of summer, that spiritual endowment, is the all-sufficiency through all of your life experiences, and all needs are met by divine love itself. So like I said, we're going to talk about the How to Fish workshop that'll be coming up soon here. I'm just waiting on, revelation of, how to organize and construct this workshop and put the pieces together. I know the concepts, but I want to have it divinely brought, so I wait on the Lord. And as soon as the Lord speaks to me and gives me the layout and the structure, then that'll be announced. And I'm excited, again, to teach how to fish in this, modern age, just as it was 2,000-3,000 years ago. Doesn't matter. It never changes. So stay blessed. I love you all, and stay in your heart, and everything will be ordered in the perfect divine right timing. And most importantly, you'll find your harmony and your peace no matter what circumstance you're in, as long as you know where to turn. God bless.